Wait, are you are you gonna count me in? Whatever. I'm just gonna go for it. Welcome to the Queen's Lead podcast. I'm your host, Amy Singleton, and as a child of the 80s, I'd love to say queens rule, but they don't. Queens lead. Being a queen means you are worthy to be a leader of people. The guests on our show do exactly that. They are leading the way in their businesses, families, and communities. And they're taking their rightful place in the spotlight, leading and inspiring the developing queens in all of us. Welcome to the Queen's Lead podcast.
Now here's your host, Amy Singleton, the queen of realness, leading conversations about business, life, and the real shit you want to know.
Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Queen's Lead podcast. I'm your host, Amy Singleton. And today we are speaking with another fellow Okie. There for a while, like in first season, we had like an entire, weeks and weeks and weeks worth of all Oklahoma women. It was fun. And now we have another Oklahoma woman back, Evonne Barrier. She is the CEO and founder of Barrier Consulting. Now listen, here's why you want to stick around, because Evonne has been a serial entrepreneur, owned and operated multiple businesses, including Barrier Consulting, which is her very successful virtual assistant agency. And I know a lot of people out there listening are like at that place where they're like, do I need help? Can I afford full-time people? What about a virtual assistant? And how do I know who I can trust with that whole process? Evonne is going to break it down for you today, help you to understand your time and so much more. She actually came about this in a very interesting way, starting with an RV. So I will just let her tell that story and welcome her. Welcome, Evonne.
Thank you so much, Amy. Yes, it really started this whole kind of entrepreneurial journey. Started with a dream of traveling with my husband, and when we got married, we really wanted to travel and see the world. He was raised by a long distance truck driver. His dad's been in long distance truck driving for his whole life, and so when he was a kid, he got to kind of travel, and I've never gotten to travel a ton. So that's really where it started and kind of was the original driving force of how my business was built the way it was.
Yeah. So like you just up and sold the house one day? Tell us
Well,
how it happened.
Okay.
To a lot of people, that sounds like a dream. To other people who maybe are a little more risk averse, that probably sounds like a nightmare, but I'm sure it was a mix of both, having experienced it yourself. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it started with COVID, as many of our stories do nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So, well, I guess we could back up a little bit further. I actually started my business. I started working as a virtual assistant in 2018. So I left the restaurant industry. I had worked in restaurants for over 10 years. I was a manager. I had hired and trained and, created a whole training program for a local company that I had worked with for about 5 years. And when I left, it was just time for something new. I was ready to grow. I was ready to expand. And I really didn't know what that looked like or where I fit in. So I, as many of us do, just kind of did a bunch of stuff. I sold different things and tried different businesses. And one day I stumbled across the virtual assistant world, and it just seemed like maybe I could do this. Maybe this is a good fit. So I started working as a VA and then quickly filled up my time and needed support. I couldn't do it all on my own. I was working 45 hours a week between 3 different clients and still networking 5 hours a week. And, I was just hustling. I was at that point where it's like, you just got to put in the work to kind of figure out what's going to happen and build this thing. And so I had people coming to me needing support. At the same time, a friend's daughter reached out and was like, hey, I want to be a VA. How did you get started? And that's essentially how my agency was born. So fun story. Those two actually are still working together today. So 6 years later, that was 2019. Wow. So August 2019, the agency began, and there was just like this little thought in my head of like, maybe one day I could build this thing to like support us while we travel and go do the things that we always said we wanted to do. Well, fast forward 2020, COVID hit, the world shuts down. My husband, who was working a W-2 job with a large corporation here in Oklahoma City, was laid off the day after his birthday in May. along with over 1,000 employees across the state from that company.
Wow.
So like kind of
Ah,
threw us for a loop, and that little voice in the back of my head saying maybe this could fund travel started to talk a lot louder, right?
yeah.
Because we're a little bit in a panic trying to figure out, we had bought a house 2 years before in the city. We had moved from Norman, which is, a little suburb of Oklahoma City, for those not in Oklahoma, and had moved about an hour away from our family. And so we spent a few months kind of figuring out, like, what are we going to do? Decided to put our house on the market and thought, well, maybe we like go after this dream of travel. Let's sell the house, let's buy a motorhome, and let's do the thing, right?
Yeah.
So we decided, well, if we're going to do that, we have to have somewhere to live. So we talked to his parents, and as many millennials dream of, we moved in with my husband's parents for a couple of years. And it was really like just a solution that worked at the time. Definitely not something I ever thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
But we sold our house, and the whole house craze that happened in 2020, moved in with his parents. And then I think it was October of that year, so about 5 months later, we bought a motorhome. So drove to another state, bought a motorhome, drove it back, parked it on a friend's property, and started the process of renovating the motorhome. And that was about a year of renovating it. And while we were doing that, I was building the business, right? So I was like continuing to build things and working to get it to a point where Cameron, my husband, wouldn't have to go back to work, right? So it could, we were selling cars and paying off debt and doing the things to get ourselves in a financially stable place where we could ideally do, go after that.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that sounds like a dream of what almost anybody around here sounds like. Yeah, let's just sell it all and go on the road. Like, so you got the thing renovated, and where did you go?
Yeah, so we renovated the motorhome, and we moved into it. We actually took it on a trip. It went pretty well. The first trip, we had some engine troubles. I'll just say this is considered an antique motorhome. So like, just for anyone thinking about doing this out there, do not buy a motorhome that's older than 20 years. Okay, biggest tip, just don't, because it takes so much time and effort to even find parts, right? Because now it's an antique. There's some of these companies don't exist anymore. They've sold. They've been combined with other businesses. And we got really lucky and just like stumbled across a group on, I don't know if Cameron found them on Reddit or something, of these, like a group of old men who had the same motorhome as us.
I love it.
We would all share tips and advice. And we ended up, a friend asked if we would go stay on her property while she was traveling. She was going on a couple months long trip. So we ended up parking out there for a little while, and that actually kind of became our semi-permanent spot for the majority of the time we were in the motorhome. So we ended up pouring a pad out there because we actually just had a lot of issues with the engine. And so there was like one memorable trip. We think, okay, everything's good, it's working, like we're ready to like go on this week-long trip, Black Friday weekend, day after Thanksgiving. We're going out to like our favorite place in Oklahoma to camp, and we pull over in a Walmart parking lot to like go and get a few things, turn the engine off, and it won't turn back on. So we ended up stuck in a Walmart parking lot for about a week. And it was like the worst experience of my life, because Walmart doesn't like let you stay in their parking lots anymore. And when you are living in a motorhome and it's not working, you very quickly realize everything you own is in this vehicle. And if it has to be towed, it just kind of like can really destroy the inside. Things are, fall out of cabinets. There's all of our stuff is in there, and they're not liable for what happens to what's inside the motorhome in the shop.
Yeah.
So it put a new perspective on it for me. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, maybe this is like not exactly the life I really, really want. So At the same time, I started gardening, just like every other millennial out there in the pandemic. I started gardening, and I just
Yes.
got hooked. Like it became like magic to me. It was the thing that refreshed me, that I looked forward to going and playing in the dirt and planting and harvesting and all the stuff. And so a new dream was born, just like I feel
Yeah.
like as and this is something that was hard for me at first, was to kind of accept like this didn't work. We're gonna
Mm-hmm.
move on to something else now and let this old
Yeah.
thing go.
Yeah.
And so over a couple years, really, me and my husband built a new dream and a new vision for our lives, and that included raising, food, growing food, raising meat, buying local, having land, having a
Yeah.
homestead, harvesting, making going back to the slower way of living.
Yeah.
Um, and that also to me looks like a really big business opportunity. So at this point, I've been in business for a couple of years. And my husband, we had decided for him not to go back to work because the
Yeah.
company was doing well. So he eventually got bored, so started his own job, his own business, because he was bored.
Yeah.
He wanted something
Yeah.
to do. And then we, kind of had this dream of like starting a homestead and having the homestead fund itself, right? So
Yeah.
we're not having to fund it; it can fund itself, because there are so many people. We've all seen a big movement back to wellness and local
Oh
food
yeah.
and healthier things, and so that's kind of where that dream started. And we're here now, right? So a couple years
Yeah.
of working on that. We've now bought a 10-acre property. We have a poultry farm. We're part of a co-op that offers local beef and pork and chicken at our local farmers markets, all grass-fed, pasture-raised, no hormones, no antibiotics, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Working on starting my garden here for the year, and all the things. So the dream is happening, but at the same time, the business couldn't stop because it was funding everything, right? My company
Yeah.
funded all of these things, us being able to buy land and all of that. And so there was definitely a balance to be had of like going after this new company and this new vision, while continuing to make sure my existing company didn't fall apart and continue to, work well and serve its customers.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you shared that because I mean, I've heard a lot of people talking about, like changing their mind, changing direction. This isn't working. What do I do now? What's next for me? Feeling like, who am I letting down? Am I letting myself down or others? Like, can you talk us through kind of your feelings during that time and how you really overcame that? Because I feel like there's kind of a shift for a lot of people in our current economy that people are looking at doing something different or maybe turning and
Mhm.
going a different way.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really was. It felt like two sides of myself were like warring with each other as I was coming to this decision of creating another company. Um, because like I said, like my company supports multiple people. We have over 20 assistants working under us, and myself, and my business and my life. And so yeah, I had to do some soul searching. Have you heard of the Ikigai activity?
Yes. Well,
Yes.
I've read the book. I don't
Okay.
know about the activity.
I haven't
So
read the
there's a
book.
book called Ikigai. Oh, okay. So I
Okay.
didn't realize what's the activity?
So it's like a chart. Well, it's like these circles that overlap each other. And
Uh-huh.
within the different circles, you have different sections of your life. So you put in like something you think you can be paid for, things that
Mhm.
you enjoy and that feed your soul. Things that you feel like the world needs. And there's something else, I can't quite remember what it is. And those circles all overlap each other. And where they
Yeah.
overlap, you have like your vocation, your career, your mission, and like your passion or something like that. And then within all of those circles in the very middle, where they all interconnect, is your ikigai, which is, I think,
Okay.
roughly translates to like your reason for being. And
Mhm.
so when I left the restaurant industry, it was a big search for what my purpose was. I felt like I wanted something that fulfilled me, and I wanted something that felt like I was giving back to the world and not taking away. And I've worked in a bar for like 5 years, serving alcohol, and there was just like, I just wasn't fulfilled with that. I didn't feel like I was helping people. And so I went on this big search, and I came across this. Actually, my friend came across this activity and brought it to me with like a women's group we were kind of running at the time. And so we all went through this activity, and through that activity, I realized my purpose is to help people create the life they want, to help people, design and build the life that they really desire. And I was able to work that into my business through our processes and our placements and things like that, and how we support our clients and our virtual assistants. And so with this new business, I thought maybe I should do this activity again. I mean, life change, our goals change. Like, maybe I should do this again, and maybe that can help me see how this new business fits into what I see as my purpose in life. And so I go through the activity, and some of the answers were the same, and some of the answers were different, right? Like the things I felt like the world needed and stuff like that kind of had shifted. And but at the center of it, it still was about that, creating, helping people create the life that they really want and desire. But it also, parts that fed into that had shifted a little bit in regards to like connecting with local providers, more holistic food, more holistic, wellness resources and solutions for people. And so that helped my brain be like, okay, so this isn't like taking away from your mission. This is adding to it. This is how it's evolving, like how your purpose in life is evolving. And this thing can continue to be, because it still is feeding that purpose, and it's going to actually feed this other purpose, right? I just left an amazing women's conference this weekend, and one of the themes that came up was how sometimes in our business, we have to do the things that like don't necessarily feed our soul, but they fund us to do the things that feed our soul, right? So if we like working with nonprofits, maybe we need to have a few corporate clients that can pay the higher rate so we can give the nonprofits the discount, right?
That's right.
Like those things. And so while that's not how it played out in my head, I think that's really what had happened, right? And so I just decided, like, yes, I'm going to go after this. It all fits. And once I could see how it fit into the vision, it didn't quite feel like I was leaving something behind. But I think if you're going like hard pivot, like completely changing, like you really have to look at what is making you happy. If your business is not making you happy, like maybe it's boundaries, maybe there are different things that you really need to put in place. Maybe you need support, maybe you need to delegate, maybe you need to outsource, automate, eliminate things. Or maybe it really is your business isn't feeding your purpose anymore, and it needs to be a hard pivot. But there's lots of things to look at in that period. And knowing that it's okay to like make a decision because it makes you happy. You are worthy of being happy, and you are worthy of creating a life that feeds your soul. And if what you have right now isn't doing that, there's nothing but you that's holding you back from making those changes.
Come on, Evonne, tell them. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. I think for me, you keep referring to yourself as a millennial. I'm, I guess, an old millennial or young Gen Z. I don't know, like 81. Either way, I don't know. My husband is born in 77, and so I tend to like stray more to the older generation. But like back then when you started something, by God, you stuck to it. Like if you signed up for that sport, you're going to keep on playing that sport. I already paid the fees. Like I can hear the parents, like the 80s parents now going, I paid that fee. You're going to keep doing what you're doing. And I mean, like they were doing the best they could, but I think it kind of solidified in my mind, like continuing things forward. And I've heard a lot of people mention that, that loyalty that they feel like we're letting other people down. But, it sounds like you really had a great opportunity to wrap your brain around how all of the things you were doing were interconnected to that purpose and not tying into any one finite project of what you're working on at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what helps me when I'm making those decisions. Like, do I add this service? Do I go after this, bright, shiny thing over here to the side. Because at this point, I see business opportunities everywhere. So I have to
Right.
really
Yes.
be careful. Like
Yeah.
I need to, you got to get some established and going and then move on to the next
Yeah.
thing. But even with the farm, it's like there's shiny opportunity here, shiny opportunity there. And you really have to think about like what's going to work for you in your business and in your life, right? And where you want to go.
Yeah.
If you don't have the end result, if you don't have the vision that you are wanting to point your compass to, then you're never going to get there because you don't know where you're going, right? Just like
Right.
we pull up Google Maps and we say, this is where I'm going, and it tells you the
Yeah.
path. That's the same thing with your life, right? There is an amazing speaker that was talking about this at that conference about like that vision is the thing you point your compass to. And so I was very blessed to work with an amazing business coach at the beginning of my career in my company. And really she helped me see that, and she helped me, look at like my whole life and where my energy is going and where I want it to go. And like, right now it might be going more to your career, but you might want it to go more to your family. So how do we put boundaries and solutions in place, systems into place, support teams into place so that you can shift that energy more to where you want it to go? And if you're looking at pivot and you're looking at like, I need to change where I'm going or where my business is going, that's a great place to start too, is saying like, okay, so where is my energy going? Where do I want it to go? And how can I put steps in place, knowing it's not going to happen overnight, right? It's taken me 5 years to build the agency to where it is now. But, knowing that we will get there if we stay consistent and take those baby steps.
Yeah. Well, this conversation is going a totally different direction than I expected, but I am really enjoying it. Like I think this is a topic that needs to be addressed. I mean, so let's talk about how Barrier Consulting comes into play with this living the life you want to live. I mean, a lot of people that listen to this podcast are kind of stuck in that place where they're like, I feel like I'm not busy enough to hire someone, but if I don't hire someone, I'm never going to grow. I mean, is that where you find a lot of your face is like, yes. Is that where you find a lot of people are when they finally pick up the phone or submit that form to Barrier Consulting for like help?
Yeah. And I mean, ideally we want to get help before we get to the point where it feels like everything's falling apart. But I also understand, the finances and like that all needs to be working into play, right? So if you're feeling really overwhelmed right now and you're like, I have so much on my plate, I don't know where to start. I know I need help, but it all feels really chaotic. A time audit is a really great first step. So we do have a resource on the site that we're going to be giving out to your listeners. And so that is a great place to start. It's a great guide. It's going to walk you exactly through how to create the time audit. Do at least a couple days, if not a full week, if you have the the capability to do a full week of the audit. And then that's going to give you the data of where is my time going and where should it be going, right? Are we putting enough time into income producing activities, networking, sales, those kinds of things? Or is it going too much to admin and too much to, client communication? And what does that look like? That'll give you kind of an idea of where you need to focus. So first, if your time's going more into the administrative stuff, maybe there's some things you can automate or templatize. I honestly, I ran my business by myself, essentially, and made it a six-figure company by myself because I had templates and automations, and a CRM that could do it, right?
Yeah,
and so I
absolutely.
spent a little bit of money on a good tool that could do these automations, and then I spent some time in the beginning to create the email templates and the flow that I wanted to happen, and then I just automated the whole thing. So and then Calendly links. There's like so many things you can do to automate. So if you're spending too much time scheduling meetings, get Calendly. Spend the $20 a month. Save yourself hours. That's going into that. Start there. Then we look at outsourcing our deliverables. So you want to get some help on your deliverables. That's my whole business is my virtual assistants are doing the work, right? So they are doing the work while I'm doing the sales and the administrative and kind of managing the placements and the relationship. So if you are getting stuck in doing the actual client work, maybe you need to find a few experts you can bring in that can help you with that. Outsource, bringing in a subcontractor, things like that. That would be your next step. Next then we have our marketing. So marketing would be the next thing to outsource. I personally really struggle with marketing. So that was the first thing I outsourced was my bookkeeping because I felt like I really needed a good CPA on my side.
For sure.
The second thing I outsourced was my marketing because I just really struggled to talk about myself. So I brought someone in, I brought in a virtual assistant to do the marketing and help me with that. And I still am involved in it, but she does a 90%, right? And I do the 10. And then from that point, it's sales and then leadership when you go up the delegation ladder. So if you're at the point where you're like, this is crazy, start with the time audit, look at your administrative things, think through. There's also an automation checklist on my website that you guys can find really easily in our resource library that'll give you some ideas on what to automate and what tools to use. So there's a world of things you can do there before you delegate and bring things on. But on the other side, I've seen a lot of businesses where once they free up the administrative time, they go out and sell more. And then, their bottom line is going up. And so I actually do have a case study that shows with one of my clients where her first year, her income increased 19%, but the second year it increased 109%, something along those lines.
Oh, wow.
Yes, with a 15-hour-a-week VA.
15 hours a week?
Yeah, 15 hours a week. And so that's just a little bit of a glimpse into what can happen when you delegate, because you're going to have the time to do more sales, to do the income producing activities, which increases your bottom line and is going to cover the cost of the VA plus, right?
Yeah.
So that's the power of delegating. We're expanding our reach, we're expanding our abilities in our own companies, and we're giving ourselves the ability to do more, to serve more, to make a bigger impact.
For sure. And I mean, your impact goes far beyond just the businesses that you're serving as far as your clients. I mean, to me, when I think about the definition of an entrepreneur, it's like someone solving problems and employing people. And you employ, you said like 20, how many VAs?
Yeah, we have around 20 or so actively working on projects right now. And then I have, I'm always bringing in great talent because I like to have a good pool of resources and talent to pull from to make sure we're placing the best person for the client and their needs.
Right. I mean, when someone thinks about hiring a VA, many times it's, someone out of this country, there are language barriers, they don't know, like how to go about hiring, what is the kind of, what's the standard, what's the status quo, what are the expectations? You and your team really do a good job of making sure that the fit is just right for not only the personality, but then like the work that is actually going to be getting done, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a boutique placement process we take our clients through. So it's really designed to fit not just the skill set, but the personality, the culture, the values, the work style, the communication style, all those kind of like soft skills that like you can have someone that's the right fit, but if your personalities are clashing, you're not going to want to work with them, right? And we ideally, as business owners, we don't want to have to retrain over and over and over again.
No.
That's a really
huge time suck.
Yeah, it's a huge time suck and a big funding suck. Like you don't want to have to pay someone that's not going to end up working in your company. And so in the beginning, I really saw this as a problem. And we have really designed the placement process to make sure that we're pairing, all of those other things besides just skill set. So we do a really deep dive with the client. We get a recording directly from them. That goes to the VAs. So they get, in your own words, there's no loss in translation happening. And then the VAs decide, do I think I'm a good fit? Do I want to work with this person? Do I feel like I have value I can offer? And if they do, then they'll interview with me. And I go through, 10 or so interviews per position before I make a recommendation to the client on who's checking as many of those boxes as possible. And at that point, the client will get to interview with the VA because I want there to be connection. I want them to feel like I'm excited to work with this person. Like, let's go, right? Like I'm fired up. That's the energy I want. And so I've also found a lot of times business owners, they want that opportunity to meet with this person. Like, this is not, this is an investment in your business, and you want to make sure it's the right fit. And I want people to feel confident moving forward. And so we do the interview, and then we schedule the kickoff, and we have ongoing support, different resources and education that goes out to the client throughout the whole process, so that they have the best opportunity to get things started on the right foot and build a really solid foundation.
That's awesome. Wow. So, what's the best way to get started with you? You've got some resources at barriervirtualassistants.com/resources. We'll have all that linked down. But if someone thinks like, I think I might actually be ready for a VA, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So on our website, there is a book a consultation link, and you can book a consultation. So barriervirtualassistants.com/consultation. And that'll schedule a call directly with me, and we'll jump on, we'll dig deep into what's going on. What kind of support do you need? Do you need an administrator, a project manager, a marketing assistant? Do you need operations and SOPs? There's a lot of different things to kind of dig into. So we'll do that with you and help you really decide like what do you need, and then go through the process of finding that for you. So on the website, you can email me, Evonne at barriervirtualassistants.com, and I'd be happy to dive into all the things with you.
Awesome. That's great. And you work with anybody nationwide, or do they need to be in a certain area?
We are nationwide. All of our virtual assistants are based in the U.S., but I have had clients out of the country. So we can work with anybody anywhere as long as you want to work with a U.S.-based VA.
You're straight up flipping the script.
Yes, ma'am.
I love it. I love it. Keep them ladies employed. Thank you so much, Evonne, for being my guest. And thank you for being a queen that leads.
Oh, thank you, Amy. It's been a pleasure.
The Queen's Lead podcast is recorded worldwide and produced by the kick-ass media team at the Height Digital home base in Nicaragua. Until our next episode, stay real, queens, and go lead. Remember to tap that follow and leave your review. For freebies and more real, inspiring content you love, go to amysingleton.net and connect with Amy on her socials at @TheRealAmySingleton.
One more thing. This is the legal language, what my lawyer wrote and what I need to read to you. This podcast is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am Amy Singleton, and I'm just your friend. Although I may speak to many on this show, I am not a psychotherapist, a business coach, a doctor, a CPA, a lawyer, or probably anyone who should be giving you professional advice. This podcast is not a substitute for a relationship with your doctor, coach, or any other licensed professional. Got it? Good. Now go be a queen and follow me at @TheRealAmySingleton.